Hey everybody, this is Grace. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the notes I had written. I wrote a lot of notes and I haven't gone through them and made videos on them. So it's kind of like the highlights of what I wrote. Maybe I can remember some of them, probably a couple of years old, maybe even. And these are mainly ones about dysfunctional families. Now, I wrote on here something about silent treatment, and that would be from a spouse or a significant other. But I think you can also see it in a family, in a dysfunctional family, such as, like say you actually decided to go no contact with them, or maybe you didn't. And, you know, they, of course, if you didn't, it's kind of like you were shunned by the whole family. If, you know, the family decides basically that you don't exist. They don't bother with you, calling you, keeping up with you, answering your calls, your texts, whatever. They don't invite you to things. And that's if you're, you know, basically shunned from them. You're estranged from them because they chose to go no contact. Maybe you're the good, you know, let's say in this, you're the good person. You're not the one, you know, you basically should have gone no contact with them. They're so dysfunctional. But they just, maybe they had used you as a scapegoat, and maybe you moved away and they could no longer use you in that way, in the way that they needed. So they just, you know, you're not, to them, they may seem to think, or to you, you may seem to think that they believe you don't, you know, it doesn't matter. You no longer exist. Now that's kind of silent treatment I could imagine could happen in a dysfunctional family. And I know that some people would say, this is great. It's a real great, it feels great to be away from them. Whether you went no contact or not, once you realize how dysfunctional they were, how much trouble they caused you. Yeah, and, you know, through that silent treatment, you got to feel what it was like without them, and you said, it's great. Okay. And then I also wrote that for them, maybe it's power control issue, and I'm not sure I wrote waiting for a blow up or punishment. I don't know. I guess whenever you're having the silent treatment from a significant other or a spouse. Yeah. Okay, let's see. The next thing notes I had on dysfunctional families is triangulation between siblings. Now, I think I mentioned this in a video before, that, you know, they don't really respect boundaries. And in this, they can use you as like a pawn, where you're the scapegoat. And say you have two siblings, say they're both females, and they're having, I've experienced this kind of thing, they're experiencing, you know, they had some kind of issue between them, or say there was, you know, like a holiday they were planning for somebody, you know, for somebody in the family, or, you know, birthday party or whatever, and they have different views on it, but you don't know this, and say one calls you and says how bad the other one was doing, and then flip it, the other one calls you and says how bad the first one was doing, and or what they were doing wrong, and they're trying to get you into the middle of this. Instead of them working it out between the two of them, they triangulate you, they bring you in, and that way, you know, they don't have to do the work really. Then when it all comes down to it, they're going to use you as a scapegoat and say it's all your fault, and then they just live happily ever after kind of thing. Well, until the next time. But they will, you know, neither story adds up. You know, like people say there's two sides to the story, and some say there's three. You know, one side, the other side, and the truth. But I don't really see things like that at all. And anyway, that's what they do. They can do that, and they can continue to do that year, you know, time after time after time again. And behind the scenes, they're talking bad about you. They're spreading, you know, using like a smear campaign against you, saying if anything goes wrong, they have you to blame. And they will. They'll do that too. Besides the smear campaign, if something goes wrong, it's your fault. You were the one that gave input. Now, you can also see this as a bit like, say the parents have passed away and the siblings are doing that. They're trying to find someone they can be number one with. Say that they were number one with, one was with one parent, one was with the other parent, and, you know, no parent should have a favorite, but they were the favorite of, you know, different parents. or the same even, and they're trying to find somebody else to replace that so they can feel special, that special to the other person, and a sibling could be that other person. And so that's a way also is very twisted. Okay, more notes. I already did a video about this, about how life gives you, it feels like life can give you these promises within the family that you're going to grow up and your family will always be there, and they're always loyal. They have responsibilities to one another, duties, feel duty toward one another. They always love you. You run into a problem or they run into a problem, everybody's there for one another, and it doesn't work out that way. And not in a dysfunctional family. Mine, good chance, I'd say. Don't have any statistics on it, but yeah. Yeah, let's see. Okay. And yeah, I did a video on that one already, so I'll just move along. And then I did some on dysfunctional family in-laws. Yeah. Now that you can have both, of course. Your family is dysfunctional, the other person's family is dysfunctional, your significant other or your spouse, which could be the same. And so your generation of, or your spouse's generation of the family and the way that they would treat you. Man, mine, they did a number, they would try to, things like, I woke up thinking about this today, about, they always had this habit, the women always had this thing about them. They'd come to wherever we were living, and they would just take over the kitchen, like it was theirs. They'd move stuff around. Yeah, they'd do all the cooking, and yeah, I mean, actually move things around like I had put them in the wrong place in my own home. Oh man, and the last time I saw one of them, she did that, and oh, I got so angry. And there was a language barrier as it was, but no, you don't go into somebody's house and change things around, period. That's the way I see it at all. Unless there is some major reason, you just don't go and do that. And also, I wrote this, I've done videos on these before, when they act like they're on your side, something's going on, and it could be between you and your spouse, or you and another member of their family, or another member of their family, or somebody that you all know, and they act like they're on your side when actually they're just gathering information, to use behind your back, that it's like a smear campaign behind your back, talking bad about you, or just gossip, finding something, but they're acting all buddy-buddy. We know how that goes, don't we? And then that way they can have something to tell other people. And but yeah, that was another one. And this one can be for both, your own dysfunctional family or your dysfunctional in-laws. Yeah. And in-laws, that's just not the parents. Okay, your significant other's parents. Can be anybody in their family, especially like if their family is close with cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff, any of them, any of their extended family. But like I said, it can also be your own family. And it comes down to when they maybe you were raised that there was only one right way to do anything, and it was whichever parent was that type. Some would call them narcissistic, whatever it is. They were the dominant one and said, this is how everything has to be done, and you do it exactly that way. It could be I knew somebody who, it was her boyfriend was that way toward her kids. They didn't last long. Yeah. And but anyway, they don't allow alternatives. You have to do things exactly their way, and even though there are other ways to do that thing, no, they're not going to allow that. And then that kind of, the way that they say you have to do it becomes a part of you. Say, this is your family. It becomes a part of how you do things, and then you meet somebody else and say, why in the world would you do things that way? That just doesn't make sense. And then you have a time you have to stop and think, yeah, you might spend a lifetime stopping and thinking about, why am I doing this way? It doesn't make any sense. Or there's an easier way to do it. There's a better way to do it. It has a better outcome. And you realize that's the way you were basically programmed by that parent. Okay, and I also wrote again about, that some parents like this, or in-laws, they infantilize you, treat you like a child, when you're an adult. And also, another thing I wrote was, besides that they have strange logic, I've seen that too many times, is that sometimes they'll make up rules, and this can even be your spouse, okay, anybody. They make up rules that you have to live by. They don't usually, you know, it's not for them, it's for you, infantilization, treating you like the child, and they're a bad parent. And then they forget the rules. You know, the next time you're doing something and they say, why are you doing it that way? You say, because you said so. That's the way you said to do it. And, you know, they totally forgot that they said that. And in a way, they're making themselves look like dumb as they were. Dumb is not the right word. But is it? Maybe. Okay, and I'm looking through my notes when I turn it off. I don't know if you can tell it, since it's just a wall. When I say okay is usually when I can't come back. But it's funny because I have this note here, and I don't know how long I wrote it, months, year or two ago. And I was just thinking about this today. Seriously, thinking about it today and recently. And that is about, when families are, like, the kids grow up and they move away. Mine did. Everybody went different directions all over the United States, kind of thing. And it used to not be that way. Okay, it was that, people got to, they raised their family in that same town or same city or same part of a city, where they had some kind of sense of community, and we don't have that so much these days as some people do. They're lucky. I truly believe that they're lucky to have some sense of community, and they know their neighbors. I know a lot of people complain about that because, they have nosy neighbors. I have a nosy neighbor, more than one. But it's so tight, and that kind of thing, that it's like gossip can get around and affect your life. But there's also a bad thing when there is no community, and anybody can do anything to anybody else. I truly believe, don't have any statistics on it or any research, but that it opens the door for more abuse, because nobody really knows you, knows your patterns. There's nobody you can go to that's nearby. If in any kind of situation, you see what I'm saying, when it's very distant. But close community, that doesn't fly that well. And I wrote about the non-traditional family, and what many have considered was a traditional family would be these days laughed about. Children, even when they were adults, and maybe even once they had their kids, they were still living in the family home or area. Let's just talk about, like I had said, the area first. But living in the same home, this was not considered a bad thing. We, at least here, it's like, okay, you turn 18, kick you out the door. If you're not going to college, even if you are going to college for some people, you're out the door. You're an adult. You go live, you survive by yourself. This is my home now. And you see what I'm saying? But it used to be where people stayed living at home. And I think there was much more communication. There was more people to raise the children, I remember when I was younger, more women stayed home. It was usually women, and were the homemakers still, and we were just kind of moving out of that era, really. And then they started working because it needed both incomes. And before that, the thought was, a corporation doesn't just hire the man, he hires two employees. You see. And the second employee was the wife at home doing everything. So, and it's like the pendulum swung way too far to the other side, where there wasn't enough, adult supervision, really, and to raise the child, and then it turned to the computers, the iPhones, the whatever, cell phone, whatever computer is raising the child. And hopefully something different will happen. But anyway, there was less involvement in the family. There is now, to me, less involvement. Back then there was more involvement, because say that you had a grandparent there. The grandparent was home, retired, or grandparents, and they were helping to raise the child. Okay, no latchkey kid. I don't think many people remember that term for it. And the parents did need to have more involvement with the children, and the children needed to have more involvement with their family members too. Now they do. Then they had this. Okay, they really couldn't get away with much. When there was at least one parent, one adult, one guardian at home. Anyway, that's why I wrote. They need more extended family involvement, and I think that it needs to move back to that way, in that direction a bit, like I've been saying. Okay, and I also wrote some notes on dysfunctional mother-in-law, but I just made a video a couple weeks ago, I guess, and I've uploaded it. I just haven't made it public yet. Part of my story, and but I did leave out some things, but I don't know what I wrote. Highlights was the intentionally. I can't read my own writing. And these are the highlights. Petty things add up. Yeah. They're not insignificant. And then the way people say, why can't you two just get along? It's not you two. That's a thing that I think is a big problem, is that one of them is antagonizing the other. What is the other one going to do? You see? But it's always you two, both of you. It's both of you. You're both at fault. And who are you, daddy or mommy? Infantilization again. Or they say, well, you just need to be the better person. Okay, I already am the better person. Is that person who's a problem? You see what I'm saying? And then it would just be, I'm looking at my highlights, and it just becomes a bigger issue. It really does. And it is a bigger issue already than just saying, why can't you two get along, or be the better person. It's just petty. But no, it's really, I wrote about power and control, and sometimes it can be many things, but sometimes it's they want to get you out because of, say, inheritance. I think I mentioned that in the video I did about my story. Now I think I had mentioned many of these in videos prior to that, probably even within this, and within my series. But I wasn't doing them back to back. I was doing them over, well, now it would be almost 2 months, a month and a half, I don't know. Okay, then I wrote about inheritance, new title, Inheritance, and I don't know why I wrote Never Know. People sharing solutions that work for them. I guess, nobody's a lawyer, or, unless they are a lawyer, they need to be that person's lawyer, kind of like a counselor needs to be that person's counselor. I'm not one to give counseling advice, and none of this is. Read the disclaimer below this video on YouTube. But I'm not a lawyer either. And then I wrote no guarantees. I guess if people share their experiences with, dysfunctional families, and say one family member does something to screw up the inheritance, or if it hadn't been written, yeah, that could cause a big problem too. When people share their stories and, see what worked for them, there's no guarantee it would work for another person, of course. Let's see what else. And then I wrote, some people can't afford lawyers, or it looks like I wrote PIs. I don't know why I wrote underneath that counselors, but yeah. So yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts about this, and like I said, I wrote notes, and I still have a whole bunch, and I'm going to try to go through a few more, try to get them on, most of it on one video. And like I said, sometimes I don't remember why I wrote it. So like I said, just little highlights. Okay, this one was about, it says daughters and sons of dysfunctional families. And at first I thought it said dating with the narcissistic parent, but it was dealing with the narcissistic parent. That's tough. I mean, when you really think about it, you have to do, some people have experiences, I have, dealing with, a parent that is, say, an elderly parent, and maybe has dementia, or something along this line that's needs to be taken care of. And you have siblings, and quite often you know, in that kind of situation, you may have a sibling that's narcissistic too, and basically it gets all put off on you, and then when you've been used as a scapegoat your whole childhood, perhaps, and then they'll continue to use you as a scapegoat, or to continue to use you, no matter what, no matter how it is, and they just want to throw a little money at it. Well, let me just send some money, and why don't you just hire somebody to do this or that for them? They don't want to have to actually do any of the work. And sometimes getting any financial help out of them is yeah, right. They're not going to do anything. They, feel like they don't need to. Pretty sad, but it happens. Okay, and I also wrote some about when you grow up in a dysfunctional family, you can hear people say, I remember when I was younger, people would say, when you grow up in we didn't call it dysfunctional family, just a bad family. When I was a kid, young, they said, well, you have a good chance of repeating the pattern, And I've heard so many things like that over my lifetime. The way people put it, or even that whole thought of you're trying to work out the problems with your whichever parent, you're working out the problem with somebody. That's putting the blame on you. That's pointing the finger at you. I never liked that you're trying to work out your problems, and so it's basically saying you're the user, instead of saying the person you met, that you were in such a dysfunctional family, you grew up and that's basically kind of all you knew, all you know, and then somebody else, the other person, the person that's toxic, whatever, narcissistic, however you see it, sees you're primed, you were raised this way, so they jump in. And instead of putting the blame on them where the blame should be, that whole thought was putting the blame on the victim. I didn't not at all like that. But I do agree with the thought, and it's trying not to blame the victim, is that once you get away from your dysfunctional family or out of a dysfunctional relationship, to take the time to get over it, work with a counselor, get through it, and work on yourself and all that. You weren't to blame for their dysfunction, their dysfunctional behavior, their narcissistic attitude, whatever it is. You're not to blame. You didn't create that. It was not your fault. But working on you once you're out of it, that's your responsibility. So I agree with that. And I also wrote that you can pick friends this way, and your friends growing up can be also this type. It's not just all of a sudden once a person turns becomes an adult, and wherever you live, it could be a different age. Here, say 18, and all of a sudden, once they're 18, they have this disorder. It's not really like that. It doesn't just poof, there it is. No. So you can pick friends when you're young, and you just continue the pattern, or you stay friends with the same ones who are dysfunctional, who are toxic, who are narcissistic, who are abusive, whatever. Yeah. Okay, I mentioned I had a whole bunch of thoughts. I still have a whole stack. I don't even think I've gotten halfway through them. It's like 2 on a page, little note page. But anyway, here's one about parents-in-law. Okay, and this is all I wrote, but I think it's true. When you're younger, it could continue on in your life. More people my age around me that I knew of, we were taught, you respect your elders. We weren't taught, respect has to be earned and all this stuff. That, to me, is like giving somebody a sense of entitlement, because some people will hear it that way. They're entitled for somebody to earn something from them, like respect. You tell people that you don't have to give anybody respect, they won't. Some people won't. This is not a one-size-fits-all. So why are people teaching people that? Because that's how some people hear it, when you just make it little short sentences and you don't go into explaining it in detail. Yeah, hey, I don't have to give anybody respect. I can just do whatever I want. Not respect the soul. Anyway, but what I wrote about parents-in-law was when they were coming over. Your in-laws were coming over, the parents. And what were you taught? And what I wrote was, make it clean and younger. Okay, that's what it was when I was younger. That's what I was taught, But I think many people that I knew, that's how they felt when the in-laws were going to come to visit. You make everything clean, look good, look great, perfect for them. I don't think people do that too much these days. And I do think that it was another thing that went too far in one direction, swung the other way too far back, and it needs to, level out, even out. Yeah, because you should be comfortable in how you live. And if you're not comfortable with other people seeing it, why are you living that way? If you have a choice, as you mature, you say, well, it is my choice. I don't have to live, like say you're a slob. I don't have to live like this. I can get off my butt and clean the house. That kind of thing. And it shouldn't be just something you do because of somebody else. You see? Okay, I think I've done enough in this video. It's like, wow, she was really jumping all over the place in this one. It's my usual jump over the place, but yeah, I think these little bitty highlights maybe isn't the same way as my usual stream of consciousness kind of thing. Anyway, I did have a note that to say this. I do have playlists on my YouTube channel that at least one of them has the title of Dysfunctional Families. I think I have them divided up with dysfunctional families, dysfunctional in-laws, dysfunctional siblings, something like this. So if you want to watch them, go to the home page, and I don't think it's the home page. Yeah, it might be home page, and see, you can look at them and watch them, whatever you want. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up, and I'll talk to y'all in another video. If you have anything you care to share, leave a comment below. Talk to y'all later.